Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Subhanupassing viharantang indriyesu asangvutang bhojanam hi amatanyung kusitang hina viryang tangve pasahati maro vato rukkang vadubbalang asubhanupassing viharantang Bhojanam hicha mattanyung saddang aradha viryang tangve pasahati tangve nappasahati maro vato selang va pabbatang. Venerable Chief Naika Hamduru, Venerable Sir, friends and children in the Dhamma, welcome for our Saturday Dhamma talk. We are continuing the series of Dhamma talks based on the Dhammapada. We are in the midst of explaining the twins, the two stanzas, the first chapter of the Dhammapada. Once Buddha met two brothers. The eldest one is called Mahakala. The youngest one was called Chulakala. They had another brother called Majjimakala. He was at home, and these two brothers were merchants who bring goods, merchandise from one city to another to sell, and bringing valuables from cities to their homelands to sell. So one day, while the Buddha was residing in Jetavana monastery, Mahakala, who had come from far away, was settled down nearby to the monastery. In the evening, as usual, when the Buddha is in the city, in the town, people always come in the evening to listen the Dhamma from Buddha. They were coming towards the monastery, white clad, flowers, incense, and other requisites in their hands. They were coming towards the temple. Mahakala, being curious, asked these people, "Where are you going?" They answered him that they are going to see the Buddha and to listen the Dhamma from him. Having fulfilled required perfections in the past lives, Mahakala was immediately interested in seeing the Buddha and to listen Dhamma from him. So he asked the youngest brother, Chulakala, to take care of the business, and he went to listen to the Buddha, paid obeisance, paid respect to Buddha, sat down, and started to listen. The usual pattern of Buddha is that when he gives a talk, he wants each and every one of his talks to be fruitful, to yield some results, spiritual, supramundane results. And he surveys the audience and look for a particular individual or a group of individuals who are capable of comprehending what he is teaching and initiate the monastic life or initiate the spiritual journey, having given up the worldly affairs. That day, when he surveyed, Lord Buddha found the new guy who is sitting in the crowd, this young merchant, this Mahakala. He has the seed within him. He is willing to wake up from the slumber of defilements, who is ready to wake up from his deep sleep in defilements. Aiming this Mahakala, Lord Buddha taught the unpleasant journey that one is moving from one life to another, jumping from one life to another. This incessant, continuous journey in the samsara. And the danger in developing, continuing, maintaining the attachment to the sensual pleasures. There are dangers, and how they bind beings to the recurring process of birth and death. After hearing the teachings of Buddha, which explained, clarified the suffering, the aggregate of suffering that one goes through in each and every life, Mahakala decided it is now the opportunity for me to initiate my opposite work, opposite journey to the continuous process of birth and death. Master is there. I have to become a disciple for this. Being engaged upon all these worldly affairs, I cannot do that. Worldly affairs and spiritual affairs do not meet at any point. I have to give up. I have to give up one of them. So he decided to leave the world behind and initiate his spiritual life. He went back to his brother and asked the brother to take over the business, saying that he is going to become a monk. Chulakala, youngest brother, he did not wish this. He did not like this. He said, if you are going to become a monk, I will also follow you. And he sent all the merchandise, materials to his second elder brother, Majjimakala. But when he was ordained, he did not have any kind of inclination towards the Nibbana or development of the spiritual side, spiritual development. His idea was, one day I may be able to bring back my brother to the world again. That was his intention. He was not interested in practicing, meditating, or learning the Dhamma. His interest was finding a loophole, finding an excuse to bring his brother back to the household life. To bring his brother back home was his only interest. After the ordination, Mahakala, the elder, went to the Buddha and asked him, what kind of practices do you recommend for me to practice as a monastic? Buddha said, Mahakala, those who become monks and nuns, sometimes they follow the Dhammadara. They sacrifice their life to study, memorize the teachings of the Buddha. They are Granthadhara. They are the ones who are learners of the Dhamma. The meditation is secondary for them. And sometimes those who are ordained, they are not into the learning of the Dhamma, but into the practice, Vipassana Dhara. They are into meditation. They learn the technique of meditation and they go into meditation directly. They are not worried about learning or by hearting the teaching, the law, the Dhamma. It is up to you. It is up to you to select any of these paths. Mahakala thought, I am not a young one. I am not so young to spend my time on learning Dhamma. I would like to enter into the practice of Vipassana, practice of meditation. So Buddha instructed him to practice on the repulsive aspect of the life. Repulsive aspect of the life. It means to practice on the unpleasant aspect of life. Either our own physical body, either a dead body, or one's own physical body. If we are to reflect upon the repulsive aspect of our life, we have to analyze this physical body separately into different parts. As a whole, it may look pleasant, but when you separate this body into pieces, there is nothing pleasant in it. In Buddhism, there are 32 parts. separated out of this physical body, and to witness them with our mind's eye, with our wisdom eye, for the purpose of generating a kind of detachment towards the physical body. Atmasmin kaye kesa loma naka danta tacho mangsang naharu atti atti minja wakkang hadayan yakanang pilomakang pihakam pappasang antang antagunang udariyang karisang pittang semham pubbo lohitang sedo medo aswasa kelo singhanika lasika muttang mattake mattalunganti. These are the parts of the body, 32 parts, separately observed. If one were to practice, if one were to contemplate on these aspects separately, he is bound to lose the attachment for this physical body. That is one way of developing the detachment, a kind of a dislike towards this physical body, which is an antidote for the attachment for sense pleasures. The second way of practicing is observing a dead body, decaying of a corpse. There are 10 stages that the Buddha has introduced to us. He himself has observed the way a dead body becomes dust until it comes into the form of dust, the way it get discomposed gradually. Uddumatakang, vinilakang, vipubbakang, vichiddakang, vikkittakang, hatavikkittakang, vikkaitakang, lohitakang, pulavakang, attikang. Uddumatakang, the bloated corpse. Vinilakang, the livid corpse. Vipubbakang, a festering corpse. Vikkittakang, vichiddakang, a dismembered corpse. Vikkittakang, an eaten corpse. Vikkaitakang, a scattered in pieces corpse. Hatavikkittakang, mutilated and scattered in pieces corpse. Lohitakang, a bloody corpse. Pulavakang, a worm infested corpse. Attikang, a skeleton. How a body is decomposed, because those days dead bodies were hardly buried. They were just thrown to the cemetery, or they were burnt. Highly decorated funerals generally were not held. They understood the fact that the one who was living in the body is no more. Only the casket that person used is there. The one who used that casket, that body, is no more. So this casket, this body is no more usable. for anything. It is better to cast away, throw away as soon as possible. The guest is gone. Only the house is remaining behind. It is better to throw away this house. I think they were much more intelligent than the current living beings. They understood the reality of the life. They did not pay any importance to this decomposing body. Once it is dead, praying, offering, or paying homage to that dead body is utterly useless. That's what they thought. They just threw away that dead body. And it is the right thing to do so. The one who was in the body is gone. They just threw away it. They just threw it away to get connected with the nature again, to become part of the nature. So the dead bodies were there in the cemetery. The monks were advised to go and observe. Observe, contemplate on the way that body is gradually decomposing until it becomes a skeleton and until it becomes a heap of dust. It was a very effective way of developing dispassion towards this physical body and its desires. That's how Buddha advised Venerable Mahakala to practice. So every day Mahakala went to the cemetery and he was practicing. He was practicing, observing, watching the dead bodies. Gradually he was opening his eyes to the truth, and ultimately he became an enlightened disciple of Lord Buddha. After his enlightenment, Buddha was to start his traveling again. Mind you, Lord Buddha used to stay in a particular place for a long time, only during the rains. Rest of the year he was traveling. He was continuously traveling from one place to another, because not that he loved traveling so much. It is because that is the only way to reach to the people and to share this Dhamma. And he started his traveling. Mahakala, Cholakala was following. Somehow, by stages, they came to their own hometown, the Setavya. And when the family of Mahakala and Chulakala, when they heard that their husbands have arrived, at that time, Mahakala had 7 wives. Chulakala had 5 wives. At first, the wives of Chulakala decided, we better get back our husband again. So they arranged a dana at home and invited the Buddha to come to their home to accept their dana. And it was customary earlier evening a monk to go to that house if the Buddha is coming, if the Buddha is visiting that house, a monk would go and he will instruct the arrangements for the dana, especially to how to prepare the seats for the Lord Buddha. And Chulakala was instructed to go and arrange for the Buddha and the monks. As soon as Chulakala entered the house, the 5 wives surrounded him and they forced Chulakala to disrobe and become a layperson again. Chulakala had no resistance. He was willingly accepted the demands of his wives. He became a layman. And the next day, having learnt what the Chulakala's wives did for Chulakala and how they got him back to the house, Mahakala's wives decided that we too must get our husband back. So next day they prepared a dana at home and invited the Buddha. Of course, that day monks decided not to allow Mahakala to go and prepare for the Buddha. They get another monk to go there and prepare the seats and other arrangements for the Buddha. They thought we must protect Mahakala without allowing him to get into such a trouble. But for their dismay, for their unhappiness, after the dana, Lord Buddha asked Mahakala to stay behind and give a Dhamma talk for those people. They thought Buddha is purposely letting Mahakala to disrobe. And they were not happy with the Buddha. So when they went back to the Buddha, they asked, when they went back to the temple, they asked the Buddha, why did you do that? We are pretty sure that those wives already have forced Venerable Mahakala to disrobe. We lost another brother. Why did you do that? While they were discussing, Mahakala just appeared in front of them. What has happened was, when those wives demanding Venerable Mahakala to disrobe, he just disappeared from there with his psychic powers and appeared in front of the Buddha. Then the Buddha said, you know, Mahakala was not that weak like Chulakala. He is not to be shaken by the emotions. He has gone beyond the control of the emotions. He is like a rock mountain that cannot be shaken by the wind. Indicating this, Buddha uttered these 2 verses. The meaning of these verses are beautiful. Whoever dwells seeing the pleasurable, subhanupassing viharantang. Whoever sees only the beauty, whoever sees only the rose, not the thorns behind, not the thorns underneath. He sees only the pleasant side. If the life is so pleasant, If the sensual pleasures are so fulfilling, if they are so pleasing, joyful, making us contented, fulfilled, our lives must have become immensely joyful and happy. But we all know behind those pleasures there is a great suffering, a misery is there lying behind. A great misery is behind on the surface appearance of pleasure. That's why those who go after sense pleasures end up being discontented, unhappy, stressed, depressed, miserable. Because the pleasure on the appearance is just an illusion for us to be attracted to it. Once we go into it, the misery is there. But once we are in it, we cannot get rid of it. There is no escape from it. We are trapped in it. Subhanupassing viharantang. If one sees only that surface level beauty, attraction, if one doesn't see the thorns underneath a rose, he is bound to get hurt. He is bound to get into trouble. Rose is beautiful, no argument. It is accepted. But there are thorns that also true, that also must be seen. Then you won't get hurt. If one sees only the rose and become oblivious to the thorns underneath, he is bound to get hurt. But the one who sees the rose and the thorns, one who sees the beauty and the ugliness, one who sees the surface level bliss and joy, and underneath misery, he is not deceived, he is not entrapped, he is the one who sees the reality as it is. So Buddha says, seeing only the pleasant side of the life is harmful to you. That's what is the message is here. The message is, don't see just the pleasant side of the life. There is a pleasant side, no doubt, no argument. But if you only see that, you are bound to get entrapped, encaged in the life. Subhanupassing viharantang. Whoever dwells seeing the pleasurable, indriyesu asambhutang. Now explaining one who sees only the pleasurable side, his character, his nature, he is not restrained in his senses. He doesn't know what is controlling, what is suppressing, what is to be in control. He just let his physical senses to take control over him. He is running after one pleasure after another. He has no control over his sense pleasures. He doesn't know what is enough. He doesn't know what is the limit. Indriyesu asangutang, in senses unrestrained. Bojanam hi amatanyung, doesn't know what is the limit of food. In food, he is immoderate. He doesn't know the way of eating just to sustain this physical body. He is living to eat. He is not eating to live. He is into satisfying his taste buds, which is impossible, which is something you cannot ever fulfilled. Buddha says, the one who sees only the pleasurable side of the life, also immoderate in eating. Bojanam hi amatanyum kusitang hina viryang. He is indolent, he is lazy, lazy to practice, lazy to meditate, lazy for spiritual development. Hina viryang, inferior in effort, inferior in the energy to practice. These are the qualities of someone who is stuck in the samsara, in the Buddha's vision. And he says, such a person is controlled, dominated by Mara. Mara here is not a person, but the defilements, emotions. He is dominated by his emotions. He is enslaved by his emotions. He is controlled by his emotions. Over him indeed, Mara prevails. Tangwe pasahati maro, he said. He is under the influence of Mara. And this Mara will pull him down, will destroy him, will break him down like a powerful gust of wind. Pull out a weak tree. Vato rukkang madubbalang. Like a weak tree is being pulled out, fallen down by a gust of wind. Subhanupassing viharantang indriyesu asangvutang bojanam hi amatanyung kusitang hina viryang tangve pasahati maro vato rukkang vadubbalang. Whoever dwells, seeing the pleasurable, in senses unrestrained, immoderate in food, indolent, inferior of effort, over him indeed Mara prevails like the wind over a weak tree. Now the second verse, the opposite one. This first verse represents that Chulakala. As soon as the wives, his former wives, asked him to disrobe, he was ever ready to disrobe and go. He was not at control at all. He was under the control of his desires, of his defilements. Such a person can be pulled out of the spiritual path like a weak tree is fallen down at the force of a gust of a wind. That's the idea. Then the Mahakala. This Mahakala is, Buddha says, whoever dwells seeing the unpleasurable. In our life, when we compare the pleasurable and the unpleasurable, which is most prominent, strong, powerful? It is the unpleasant, unpleasurable, misery. That's why we feel sometimes this life is a hellish life, full of suffering, because the unpleasurable is much more powerful, prevalent in our lives. Those who see this unpleasurable side of the life, asubhanupassing viharantang, whoever dwells seeing the unpleasurable, they are in control of their senses. You see the unpleasurable, then naturally your senses are controlled. Indriyesu susangvutang. The five senses are in control. Yeah. Now, in Buddhism, Buddha doesn't say fast, being hungry. He never says that. Because this body, for its comfortable abiding, we need food. We need the material food for the sustenance of this body. So Buddha doesn't say fast or be in hunger. Nothing holy in it. Nothing beneficial come out of it. What matters is you eat, but only for the survival. Not for taste, not for beauty, not for physical strength, in the sense of developing muscles, but just for the survival of this body. That's what the Buddha's instruction for the monks. When they go for alms round, they go from house to house until they feel that they have enough food. Whatever the food doesn't matter much. If it is eatable, human sense, that is good, that is okay. We don't have any choice over the food that are being offered. We are to survive. It is just for the survival. It is up to the people to offer whatever they have. When we don't have a choice, the devotees are at liberty. They can offer whatever they are capable of obtaining, or sometimes part of their food. They don't have to cook something special for us. Same food. It is easy. It is an easy way of living. Devotees find no difficulties to sustain the monk, to maintain the monk, to help the monk, to feed the monk. That's how Buddha advised for the monks about the food. It is just to sustain this, maintain this physical body, nothing else. Bhojanam hichamatanyum. Buddha says you must know the limit of your food. Don't eat until you find that you cannot practice after that. That you become lazy, indolent after eating the food. Then it is not that you know the limit of the food. The one who takes the food not to make the body overweight, but to make the body energize. That energy is required for his practice. If the body becomes weighty after eating, then that person doesn't know how to eat moderately. That's the idea. So, bhojanam hichamatanyung, one who knows the limit of the food, the one who eats moderately, and he maintains saddhang aradhaviryam. He maintains his confidence. He maintains his confidence in the teachings of the Buddha. He maintains his confidence on the practice he is continuously attaining. He is not wavering in his confidence. He is not wavering in his practice. Saddhang aradhaviryam. Who is resolute, who is determined to maintain, to continue what he started. Aradhaviryam. Resolute in enterprise. Tangve nappasahati maro. He is not overcome, overruled, not prevailed by the Mara. Mara here is, as I said before, not a person, not an individual, but Mara is someone. Mara is something that we all have within us. Mara is our defilements, our attachments, our anger, our hatred, our enviousness, our craving, whatsoever makes you to continue from life to life, makes you to repeat this birth and death process. Whatsoever makes you to be attached to the samsara, that is Mara. Buddha says, when somebody is trained like that, when he is observing the unpleasant as unpleasant, when he is not sugarcoating unpleasant to become pleasant, he sees the unpleasant as unpleasant. He is in control of his senses. He is moderate in eating. He is confident on his practice. And he is not lacking. He is not losing his focus. He is continuously practicing. Such a person will not be dominated by his disciples, by his defilements. He will be dominating his disciples. He will be dominating his defilements. Such a person will be like a rocky mountain, a rock mountain which cannot be shaken by the wind. Vato selangva pabbatang. He will be like a rocky mountain which cannot be shaken by a gust of wind. Asubhanupassing viharantang indriyesu susangvutang bhojanam hi cha mattanyung saddang aradda viriyang tangve napasahati maro vato selangva pabbatang. Whoever dwells seeing the unpleasurable, in senses well restrained, and moderate in food, faithful, resolute in enterprise, over him indeed Mara prevails not, like the wind over a rocky mountain. That's enough for that stanza. Let's share these merits together with Devas and the departed ones. Akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanam. Akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanam. Akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu loka sasanam. Idang me ñātinang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idang me ñātinang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñātinang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Blessings for you. Dukkha roga bhaya vera soka sabbe upaddava anekantaraya pivinasantu cha tejasa jaya siddhi dhanang labhang sotti bhagyan sukam balang siriyayu cha vanno cha bhogang buddhi cha yasava satavassa cha ayu cha jiva siddhi bhavantu te. Ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminate samijjatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Good night, everybody.